Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite from December 21st, 2022. It was a show. It occurred. It was different from previous Dynamites, and so much that it was a little bit more heavy on promo, not so heavy on matches, which made it a little bit more watchable. Still some very weird decisions that were being made. Very weird decisions. Can't wait to get to it. As a matter of fact, let's jump right into the first one. Ricky Starks, Chris Jericho. All right, so Ricky Starks comes out there. He said he lost like a man. MJF won like a coward. Yeah, but he stands with respect and dignity, and there will be a next time between the two of them because he's going to be the man around here. Jericho interrupts, says that he's been watching Ricky Starks a long time, that he's not a dollar store anybody, he's $1 million talent who will be world champion one day, and he doesn't want him to be a flash in the pan, so he's going to give him a little advice. He needs a little Chris Jericho, and offers Ricky Starks a spot in the Jericho Appreciation Society. Ricky Starks shuts it down, says that he likes Jericho's ability to adapt because Jericho was once built like an air fryer, but now he's back in shape, even though he dresses like a man on his 5th divorce. He said the offer is tempting, but no. Jericho is a clout vampire, and that after losing to a Action Andretti, his stock has dropped. Then says that the JAS and the J stands for jobbers. Then he cuts down Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia, saying he's done nothing for them. And then turned it all the way around by challenging Jericho to a match on January the 4th. I like Ricky Starks. I really thought this was pretty good. To me, it moved a little too fast. Like, Ricky Starks going from just saying no to not even allowing Jericho to make a threat, saying like you will join us or something like that, and then maybe having Jericho elevated to a match, but Ricky Starks challenged him first. So, all right. Then Hager jumped Ricky Starks from behind. The Jericho Appreciation Society soon followed. Then Action Andretti ran down to the ring to make the save. Later, Action Andretti is cutting the most 1980s babyface promo backstage about how he was the upset of the decade and life has never been the same for him since that match. He knew the Jericho Appreciation Society would take their anger out on someone, and they chose Ricky Starks. 2.0 gets in his face. Fat 2.0 tells him something or other about him being on fire. He turns around, Jericho tosses a fireball in his face. So, okay. Let's talk about this whole thing in its totality. I do like that they started the show with Ricky Starks. I like that Ricky Starks is not left out. That he still has something to do. Unfortunately, you just had Jericho do a job to Action Andretti, so it doesn't really do much for Ricky Starks to beat him. Secondly, they're already booked the match for 2 weeks from now without even really putting any real heat on the match. Typical AEW. Jericho fireballing Action Andretti seemed a bit excessive, like they're trying to force feed this thing. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's necessary for you to fireball a kid who's like 5'7". You know, him beating up every member of the Jericho Appreciation Society. Again, not really believable. It seems to me that AEW likes to do things that they grew up seeing, but it's unfortunate that they don't do it with the same size of performer that they grew up watching. You know, Hulk Hogan being 6'7" or 6'8" or 6'6" or whatever, 6'5" even, coming into the ring and clearing house because he's big and muscular and all that stuff. That's believable. People will buy that. Somebody small, even if they're in shape, like Action Andretti or Hook, coming in doing the same thing, it's not as believable. You know, you have to, the role doesn't fit. You know what I'm saying? This should be, if you're going to have somebody come in and beat up everybody in the ring, that should be Wardlow. That should be Powerhouse Hobbs. That should be Big Bill. You know, they should be doing stuff like that. Coming in, just lay waste to everybody in the ring. You know, it's believable. People are going to buy into it. When it's Action Andretti, people are going to be like, okay. You know, it's the old pro wrestling gag of, You know, the babyface comes in and beats up all the heels. And Ricky Starks roasting Jericho was fun. Saying he's shaped like an air fryer, which is great because it made me think about the shape of an air fryer. And it's very colorful. The more colorful your language, the better you tend to be when it comes to cutting promos. Again, he called Jericho a clout vampire, which was great. And really what Jericho should have jumped on right there is the clout vampire thing. And built his response to Ricky Starks towards that, and the J standing for jobbers, which he could have broke down like, shit, I was a world champion 2 times over in this place. Garcia was a champion. Guevara was a champion. The only person who hadn't won a title is you. You know, but because they had Ricky Starks make the challenge, it went from Ricky Starks was dissing him the entire part. And then he made the challenge instead of letting Jericho respond. And Jericho then dissing him by saying, hey, the only one who ain't won a title match ever in this place is you. You know, so that would have been, okay, Jericho is escalating. And then you let Ricky Starks escalate a little bit. And then Jericho is the one who makes the challenge by saying, you think you don't need my advice? How about January the 4th? You know, you and me, blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't matter too much. That's probably being nitpicky. But Jericho is fine, I guess. I don't know. The Action Andretti thing, I'm not buying into it. It's humorous to me, to be quite honest. But I'm going to give the kid a fair shake. You know, I'm not completely writing him off. But it seems to me like he's just going to be another Jungle Boy. He's going to be a young guy in decent shape, but he's very small. And they're going to have him doing stuff that doesn't really fit his body type. And we're going to be rolling our eyes just like Darby Allin and, you know, some of the other guys that they have out there who are like 180 pounds, 5'7", 5'8", 180 pounds. They're just like, yeah, or I'm pretty sure he's a world beater. But they got him up to a good start. I'm surprised he was even on this show, because I said last week he probably wouldn't even make the show this week. But they fireballed him this week, so maybe he won't be on the show next week. They're going to make a little story out of it. Maybe, you know, give Action Andretti some storyline, because, you know, hey, it's literally 3 or 4 days before Christmas, and you got hit in the face with a fireball. That's kind of important, you know? If you really play this card right, you could have the guy blind for Christmas or something like that, spending Christmas in the hospital or something like that. That could be a really good story, you know? And if you like to play on emotions, that could be a really good angle about how Action Andretti is really mentally fucked up. He had to spend Christmas in the hospital because of Chris Jericho. I'm basically writing the goddamn thing for him at this point, right? That would have been very good. What was not very good, Death Triangle versus the Elite. Same old shit, just no disqualification version. We were supposed to be selling the ankle and leg of Nick Jackson, and he super kicked a chair and then immediately started selling the leg. And I was like, okay, so they're actually going to build storylines off of that leg. You know, the storyline of him getting hit in the ankle with a hammer. All right, I dig it. But then you see him doing moonsaults. He's doing flying elbow drops. He's landing on both of his legs to no selling it. Just, it's selling occasionally. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you got hit in the ankle with a hammer. I don't know how many people have really like legitimately hurt their ankle. Hurting your foot, ankle, knees is some of the most miserable pain that you could ever go through, because you can't put any pressure on your legs. There's parts of this match where Nick Jackson is trying to hobble, like he's climbing the top rope with one leg, but then proceeding to jump off and landing on his legs. And you just kind of look at that like, man, nobody who has a real ankle and knee injury will be going through that. They wouldn't do that. See, that's the thing about psychology, is, are you thinking about these things before you do them? You know, if the answer is, hey, I wouldn't do that. If an NBA player wouldn't do it with his knee and ankle, maybe you shouldn't. If an NFL player wouldn't do that with his knee or ankle, maybe you shouldn't. You're not, I mean, sometimes you could say, well, they wrapped it up and they played a little bit. It's like, okay, but they didn't get hit in the fucking ankle with a hammer. You know, we're not talking about a sprained ankle or something like that. We're talking about your ankle got bashed with a goddamn metal object, and then got bashed with a metal object again in this match, and got put in a submission hold in this match. Like, literally, you probably shouldn't be super kicking people using that leg. Probably shouldn't be doing moonsaults with that leg. Probably shouldn't be landing on that leg from elbow drops or whatever. Just made no sense, whatever. There was a barbed wire broom in this match. I literally, Nakazawa was involved. I was like, this shit was dumb. Anyway, the Elite win with the Indie Taker because, of course, you have an injured leg. You can still do flips to do flipping tombstone power drivers. After the match, Death Triangle beat the Elite bloody. Well, they beat Nick Jackson bloody. They beat the shit out of him, which is supposed to be like the official heel turn of Death Triangle, I guess. Considering it was Penta and not Pac that beat him damn near to death. Okay. I'm tired of this already. I don't know what the next match is. I'm not sure. Nor do I care. Bryan Danielson and MJF. They decided to throw some heat on the barbecue on this one. So MJF says that Bryan Danielson is a nobody, a worthless scumbag, and that everybody wants to ride his wave. But Danielson is basically going to suffer for ruining his first title defense. I like this promo from MJF because it was a very, very, very old school wrestling promo in terms of you're giving somebody who just wrestled a match a promo backstage and they're huffing. And it's not one of those, we're going to bring the microphone in the ring right after the match. But it's one of those backstage, something hot just happened. And we need to get a quick word. And MJF is pacing like in the old wrestling promos. He's pointing at the camera like the old wrestling promo. It just felt like a real old school 80s pro wrestling promo. It just had that feel to it. So I really enjoyed that. Danielson's response, however, was in the middle of the ring with Renee Paquette, which he, of course, commandeered the microphone from. He said that he's not expecting the Blackpool Combat Club to forgive William Regal, but he started his training in San Antonio under Shawn Michaels, which got a HBK chant. And he said, but the man who really made him the wrestler and person that he became was William Regal. That he cried when William Regal was in the hospital because he believed that he would never see him again. And then said that William Regal, one of the things William Regal taught him is that there had to be consequences for your behavior and consequences for your actions. And MJF has never faced consequences. But now he will be facing consequences when he gets his hands on them. This was then interrupted by, of all people, Ethan Page. Ethan Page. And the people are yelling. They want Ethan Page to go away. I'm not even saying, like, they're not even being respectful at this point. They're talking, some people are talking over him. The microphone is kind of weird. Sound issues just continue to wreak havoc in AEW. But he's talking about basically being a runner-up and everything from the tournament to the Battle Royal, and how can Danielson just skip the line, and he's not going to let that happen. Stokely Hathaway, who is dressed like he works in an office somewhere, got to like he, stands at the printer for 6 hours a day. I mean, just look at how he dresses. For Christ's sake, you remember, you have to look like a star before people will accept you as a star. These two guys look like they hang around a water cooler. They don't look like two guys. They look like they work straight up in human resources. These guys literally just look like average Joes who are just coming out of a beach shop or something like that, wearing flip-flops or something. It's like, these dudes do not look like stars. Anyway, Stokely Hathaway made some vegan jokes, calling Bryan Danielson Vegetable Man, and talked about the veganism stuff. Then Danielson kind of responded by talking about the baldness of Stokely Hathaway's head, and then mocked him for having lame jokes like Vegetable Man. To which Stokely Carmichael, I've said it again, Stokely Hathaway called Bryan Danielson a raggedy bitch. Bryan Danielson challenged Ethan Page to a match, who declined, of course, and said he'll fight him next week. What a waste of Danielson's time. We're going to have Danielson wrestle Ethan Page. Great. Good job. So what a waste of time. Ugh. It's so stupid. Ethan Page is one of the most bum-ass, average-ass, mid-ass wrestlers. I mean, the guy is super mid. He yells, and that's supposed to be that he's a good promo because he talks very loud. It's like, no, you suck. Sorry. Hate to break it to you. I mean, he's more of a... he's not in this guy's class, but that's the Shane Douglas approach. I'm going to talk very hard by yelling and speaking very loudly, but I ain't got shit to say, really. You know, I'm supposed to be a good promo, but I got no good burns. I got no charisma. I got no swag. You know, even comes... Again, the guy has the swag of a guy who drives a Volkswagen. This guy is just one of the many guys on fucking AEW who just looks like they punch a time clock and then come in here and do this, and this is it. This sucks, you know, and whatever. I'm spending more time on these guys than they spend on themselves. So let's move on. Jon Moxley is going to be shoved into a $30,000 trios battle royal for Rampage. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I honestly don't know the rules of that. I just looked at it and was like, that's a stupid fucking match. Why? At least they did something better than WWE by saying that there's an actual money involved and it's $300,000. Okay, cool. I can buy that people want to win $300,000. That's completely believable. I completely believe that, you know, there are people out here who want to win $300,000. I believe that. That's just fine with me. Moxley then cuts a really good promo on Hangman Page, saying that they can brawl and fight as long as they want, or they can settle it in the ring. But he's tired of all these somber tones about the accident. Said that it's not his fault that Hangman Page got a glass jaw. And that what did you think I was trying to do with that clothesline? Comb his hair? So he said he's not the bad guy here. And he heard that Darius Martin was injury prone. But he keeps hearing about that stuff. He's not going to be the bad guy tonight either, because Darius Martin's going to get a little bit of a lesson. I like this promo specifically because Hangman Page essentially blames Jon Moxley for, you know, I couldn't remember my son. I couldn't remember the name of my son because of that clothesline. But when you think about it, you would think that everything in a match is thrown with malicious intent, which is what Moxley essentially is saying. You're like, hey, I throw everything with malicious intent. You're in a fight. You know, like, you fight. This could happen to you. So it's a very logical thing to say to somebody. Like, you came to a fight expecting to not get hit, expecting to not really, you know, get fucked over. I mean, you can't blame the guy. You know, he's doing his job. You came to throw fists at his face. He threw a clothesline and knocked your goddamn block off. I mean, it is what it is. Then Darius Martin got stomped out by Jon Moxley. The less said about that, the better, because we already knew that was going to happen, right? There was nothing about that was a surprise or interesting or that stood out in any way, really. Not for me, anyway. I mean, maybe for some of y'all, but I'm not a work rate guy. I don't care about all these flips and shit that guy was doing. Moving on. Samoa Joe wished Wardlow a happy holidays and a very happy new year, because he's going to give Wardlow what he's been asking for. And then he's going to start taking things from Wardlow. And it says that on December the 28th, the cheer ends. So on the last Dynamite of the year, Wardlow and Samoa Joe are finally going to tear it up. And you know, they didn't spend any time on that. It's highly disappointing that they're going to book Wardlow versus Samoa Joe and not have them at least do a face-to-face, not them have at least throw scraps at each other, you know, brawl in the locker room or something to build some heat for that. This thing is next fucking week, all right? This is next week. These two guys are two guys that you should be. I mean, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about Action Andretti, right? You have this situation where this smaller guy is going out there bumping a bunch of guys, knocking them over and everything. Okay, but that should be Wardlow. He should be bumping guys, knocking guys over, calling out Samoa Joe, demanding that Samoa Joe face him or whatever. And then we get to the match next week. Like, this was a great promo from Samoa Joe because he's a great promo. But this is also a Christmas message from Samoa Joe. and not the full build to a goddamn, I'm guessing, should be main event match next week. These companies, it just can't, they just will not let you get excited about their product. They just won't. They refuse to let you get excited. I mean, for what? When you got Hook versus, quote, Exodus Prime. Who the fuck is that guy? I don't know. Anyway, during the end of this match, Big Bill chokeslammed Jungle Boy into the trash right where he belongs. And Hook had to go out there and save his friend. We never went back to see what happened here. So I'm guessing he just pulled him out of the garbage, I guess. I don't know, man. Okay. Jungle Boy is now being used as a sympathetic figure to get over Hook. But Hook is already over. Well, at least with this audience. So, I guess it's okay. Whatever. Hook and Jungle Boy, fine. You know, I'm more... The firm sucks. I don't know how else to put it. They're just not good. And everybody knows it. Who is good, though? Hobbs. Powerhouse Hobbs vignette was not long enough. Very short. But he talked about watching his uncle overdose on drugs and him being beaten and abused in his household, and said that what kind of life is this for a child? Then said that they created a monster and they were making a monster. And it had a couple of pictures of him, you know, in his home when he was a kid or whatever. They need to feature this stuff instead of just doing it in what was it? Was it 90 seconds? If it was that, it's not enough time. You know, let us sit with this and let him tell his story, you know, looking directly into the camera. Or if you want to do it via montage, which essentially that's what this was a montage, that's fine. But we definitely need to give it a little bit more time. I mean, why are you being stingy with the time? You know, maybe we need to do less flippity doodahs and a little bit more of this stuff. This was good. The Gun Club, or the Guns, sorry, they're not the ass boys. They're not the Gun Club anymore. They're the Guns, and they defeated FTR in a match where I heard the collective sphincters of all the FTR loyalists tighten up, and I just said, I like the Guns. Not mad that they won. It was good. I think I called this, didn't I? Didn't I say that the Guns were going to win? But having FTR lose to the Acclaimed, then lose to the Briscoes, took a little of the starch out of this win for the Guns. But it's still a pretty good win because it was still a pretty good match. The Guns were wearing Bret Hart inspired gear, and they also used a sharpshooter. No doubt they were working this angle in order to mock FTR, but it was still fun. The Guns win. Good. FTR's on a 3-match losing streak. I'm guessing that's their storyline. Some people seem to think that this means that they're leaving and going back to WWE. I don't know about that. I'm not gonna say anything like that. I think that's kind of ridiculous that they would, you know, quit AEW and go back to WWE. But the Guns, I like them. This is a thing where I liked both teams. I was more upset that they didn't put a lot of effort into building this. And when I say build things, I don't mean that they did stuff on previous episodes. We know that they did stuff on previous episodes. I mean, build it for people who might have a short memory. You know, I'm talking about also promote it. You know, that's part of the issue is promoting things, making people excited for things. Having the Gun Club cut a promo about how tonight is the big night. They're finally going to get a match with FTR. This is what they wanted the whole time. And then they didn't do any of that. I mean, they only had 5 matches on this show, but there's an excessive amount of talking, and some of the matches went longer than they should. But FTR and the Guns was pretty good. I like that. One thing that could have been left on the cutting room floor, Sanjay Dutt rapping. This made me want to just run my head into the wall. I would rather commit seppuku than to listen to this shit again. This was horrible. This was awful, and it wasn't fun. Then we get to everybody's favorite segment, Rick Ross, Swerve, and Keith Lee. And what could be said, but nothing but an absolute train wreck segment. Wow, what a bad segment this was. What a bad segment. But it still was entertaining in its own way. So Rick Ross is the MC for this situation. He's got the microphone. He 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 called Keith Lee a big motherfucker, uncensored, on TBS in front of God and the world. And Keith Lee couldn't do nothing but just be like, you a big motherfucker. It was great. I doubt anything serious happens to them for this. I don't think any. They're probably just TBS probably gonna be happy that Rick Ross was even on the show and not think too much about. You could just bleep it out later. It's okay. But they got a legitimate rap superstar on the show. I'm pretty sure that washes over anything that might actually be said on this ridiculous show. But Rick Ross calls out Swerve. Swerve doesn't come, and he keeps calling him the young legend. Give the young legend a chance. Give the young legend time. The young legend Swerve. So Swerve finally comes out and he starts complaining about doing things on Keith Lee's time again. Then he goes into a tirade about Keith Lee needing to keep his eyes on things. So how he needed to keep his eye on their friendship, the tag team titles. He couldn't keep his eye on his health. And now he's got to keep his eyes on the back of his head. And here's Parker Boudreaux. Baby Brock Lesnar, who was apparently a member of the Trustbusters last time I heard. I didn't know the Trustbusters had broken up. I don't know what's going on with them, nor do I care, for the record. But then he attacked Keith Lee from behind. This is a big dude. He attacked Keith Lee from behind, and Keith Lee fought him off. And I was like, well, that says a lot about how they feel about Parker Boudreaux, that they booked him to attack a guy from behind, and he fought him off. I mean, I know it's Keith Lee, and your guy's huge. He's a big motherfucker. Clearly. You're a rather bulbous gentleman. I get that. But it seemed pretty ridiculous to me. So after he got rid of Parker Boudreaux, Keith Lee tries to mark up the ramp in order to get Swerve, and he's attacked by another big jacked white boy who I had no idea who the fuck that guy was. Then I go to Twitter because I'm figuring, okay, well, the nerds know who this guy is. And quite a few people don't know who this guy is. And then there's people who are saying it's Tom McDonald, the anti-woke, quote-unquote, MAGA rapper. And I've seen some Tom McDonald music videos. I don't think it's him. I think the guy just looks like him. I have no idea what's going on or why. And Rick Ross is on the microphone the entire time talking about these are affiliates. These are our affiliates. And I said before that they were going to do a tag team called the Affiliates, or a faction called the Affiliates. I kind of saw that coming, didn't I? Because there was a rap production team called the Affiliates, and I kind of figured that was going to happen. I still thought it was hilarious, and it was a terrible segment. It was a terrible, terrible segment. Poor Keith Lee, poor Swerve. But it wasn't over, because then the Affiliates jumped Keith Lee. They put a cinder block on his belly. Then Swerve did a double foot stomp on the cinder block that was on the belly of Keith Lee. And I don't know, is that their attempt to write him off? I don't know what that was. But it all happened. I guarantee you it happened. I promise you that I'm not lying to you. That two jacked white boys jumped Keith Lee, and I have no idea who any of them are. And I'm fairly sure that guy is not Tom McDonald. I'm pretty sure that guy's not Tom McDonald. But everybody had me thinking that it was. But it was not. It seems, I don't know who he is. Maybe somebody is going to be able to figure that out. But two jacked white boys beat up Keith Lee and then Swerve stomped him on the stomach. Now, there's people out there, of course, who are very upset about this. They're very angry because they don't think that Swerve needs a faction. They want Swerve to be by himself. That's fine. But I'm not going to be upset about him having heavies either. It's true that not everybody needs to be in a faction. It's true that we don't really need this. I agree. We don't really need this. But I'm not going to be upset that they have it. Because I don't see it as something that takes away from Swerve yet. You know, I don't see it taken away from him yet. And if it starts to take away from him, then I can see how you would, you know, bitch and complain about it. But as for right now, I don't see that getting in his way, tripping him up. All right, the main event of the show was actually Jamie Hayter versus Hikaru Shida. This match was in some way built up a little bit earlier with a short vignette between the two. A hard-hitting match, surprisingly hard-hitting, not bad for a women's main event. You know, I think it was one of the few times the women have main evented on Dynamite. Britt Baker, of course, and Reba got hella involved in this. But, you know, of course, Jamie Hayter won because Britt Baker and Reba got hella involved in this. And Saraya and Toni Storm didn't come until after the match was over. It's like, hey, good job in coming to make the save when it's too late. You know, you did a great job coming out when it was too damn late. Having a match that had no heat be the main event is a gamble. You know, that's a big gamble. The Guns and FTR probably should have been the main event because at least they had long-standing heat. These two girls, basically, Hikaru Shida beat somebody else to get a title shot, and then this was her title match. There was no need for this to be a match that was the main event. I don't know. Look, I'm going to let Tony Khan cook. Do your thing, man. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. You know, if you celebrate Kwanzaa, good job on that. I'm not going to rack my brain criticizing the same crap that I always criticize when it comes to Tony Khan and his inability to actually build a goddamn show and build heat. I'm not going to even be bothered with it. But, so that was AEW Dynamite. They attempted some things. Give them some credit for taking a chance on the Guns, on the Rick Ross segment. But ultimately, it was more of the same AEW. Sorry. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.